walking through a ghost town. Y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. You were lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page. But we still read that book, and we still run that race. Ay, Mississippi Racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi Racer riding out, till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi Racer riding out, we'll stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi Racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Ay, red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 Time to chill, don't sweat it.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show. I am live on location this morning, Mo. We are in the wilderness out here on my end of the world. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing good. Are you just roughing it, partner, or are you just...
Listen, when the wife says we have to go visit the in-laws, we have to go and visit the in-laws.
You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me at all. I'm a veteran. Trust me, I know.
So we are lakeside for the week. So if you hear the wilderness behind me, it's because we are in the wilderness.
That's pretty cool. I like your backdrop. I like it.
It's natural. We're going all natural this morning, Mo. We had a lot of stuff happen over the sports weekend, Mo. So let's jump right into it. Let's start with the NFL and Mo, I thought it was done. I thought we were over. I thought we were ready to move on with the Brandon and Ayuk situation. Remember, they met. Him and the Niners met. They had a good
meeting.
And I thought we were good to go, Mo, but that appears to not be the case because now Ayuk is saying things like, well, I'll probably be a 49er this season, but if I had to play for another team, I could also see myself as a Commander or a Steeler. And then he rolls up into the San Francisco training facility with a Pittsburgh Pirate hat on. And then he does another podcast where he says, you know, if you can't afford a Lamborghini, then you can't have a Lamborghini. Mo, he ain't no damn Lamborghini. If he thinks he's a Lamborghini, this is not going to end well for him because he is not a Lamborghini when it comes to the wide receiver unit in the NFL.
He's not. Look, if we were going to describe receivers by cars, I think Tyreek Hill would be closer to a Lamborghini. And I think Brandon Ayuk has had two really good seasons. Last year, obviously, more of his breakout year overall. But it's a small body of work. And he's talking as if I've just been dominating the league for the last 3 or 4 years. He's been an integral part to a very good offense. When you play the San Francisco 49ers, you don't go, the first thing we have to do, we have to stop Brandon Ayuk. They say the first thing you have to do, we have to stop Christian McCaffrey. If we don't stop Christian McCaffrey, we're in trouble. And then you got to watch George Kittle in the hashes and so on and so on. Not a Lamborghini. I would say that he's a really good, reliable, strong Dodge truck. You know what I mean? Like you can depend on him. He's very good. He's reliable. He's going to make some plays. Not a Lamborghini. Look, I've already said how I felt about this as a 49ers fan. Do we want him back? Of course you do, because he's a very good player. But I think with all the chattering and all the talking, like he's like, well, I guess I'll play for them. Like, well, you're under contract. You're going to play for them or you're going to sit the bench for them. So yeah, you're going to play. And my guess is the way the Niners are thinking now, like, all right, well, we'll just play out this season. You know what I mean? And see what happens, because at some point, I think the franchise looks at him and goes, we're ready to cut ties like yesterday, because this guy can't stop talking. And there might be a team out there, Chris, that wants to pay him top dollar. I just don't think it's the Niners. And as good as he is, he's not one of the 5 best receivers in football.
And the crazy part is, Mo, you want to go play for who? The Steelers, who are probably the third or fourth best team in their division. You want to go play for the Commanders, who are probably the third best team in their division. I get it. Winning isn't everything for everyone. Guys want to get paid, but you're going to get paid eventually with the Niners. You may not get paid top dollar, but you're going to get paid. Like, I don't know. And what usually, you just don't usually see this, Mo. You don't usually see guys with well-run organizations who are a critical part of what they do, who you know are eventually going to get paid comparable to what they deserve, make this kind of noise on a consistent basis the way he is doing, which I think that's the weirdest part of this situation. The Niners want him. It's not like they don't want him. They just aren't probably going to pay him Justin Jefferson money, which, by the way, Mo, I don't think anyone thinks he deserves outside of himself.
I agree. I'm trying to figure out. They want him. It's no secret. They've made no secret they want him back. They think he's a big part of what they do. But it has to be frustrating at some point as an organization, because here's this guy who, through your system, through the way you guys call games, the way your offense is played, he's playing his best football. But I don't think he's the kind of receiver you build an offensive around. Does that make sense? That he's a number one-ish player, but if he goes to the Commanders, like you said, you can get paid. You'll get paid, but you're probably not going to be winning anytime soon. If you go to the Steelers, you'll get paid, but you're probably going to be floating around 500-ish. But you're not going to be winning big time anytime soon. And I think if he goes to the Steelers, if anything, Steelers fans are going to have buyer's remorse, because they're going to realize, like, he's not that guy. Like, he's pretty good, but he's not that guy. And the thing is, they want to pay him, Chris, more money than he's ever made, but he's making it seem like they're slapping him in the face. And that's the part that I don't understand. And I get it. I'm not one of those guys that say players shouldn't make money. You should get paid what you're worth. But I agree on that. You should get paid what you're worth. The line usually goes, you're worth what they're willing to pay. Well, you know what they're willing to pay. They've not kept their hand close. They've played their hand. They've told you what they're willing to pay. And again, I will put it out there. There is a franchise out there, I can't think of it off the top of my head, that will overpay for his services. But I don't know who that franchise is. And my guess is, if there is one, they're a very badly run franchise.
Mo, let's get JG up here this morning. We got some Major League Baseball things to discuss, and who better to do that than with JG himself? Good morning, JG. How are you this morning, sir?
Morning, guys. Good morning.
Hey, what's up, JG?
JG, always a pleasure to have you here. Let's get right into it. We got some brand new home run derby rules, and we have a confirmed entrant into the home run derby. And if you're Major League Baseball, you are off to a good start with your home run derby lineup, because nothing is better than one of the best up-and-coming stars in the league, like a Gunnar Henderson, wanting to partake in the home run derby. Obviously, Judge has already said he is out, and Ohtani isn't playing either. So those two names are not going to be in the home run derby this year. But there's nothing wrong with an up-and-coming star like Gunnar Henderson getting you some star power and, maybe some attention to some of your younger players that maybe other casual fans who don't watch other teams outside of their own might not know about. So, JG, two questions here. One, obviously, good move for Major League Baseball getting Gunnar to be a part of the home run derby. And two, any issue with the rule reconstruction for the derby itself?
No, I like that you have the young superstar, and that's kind of it is. I think if you get a mixture of veteran superstars with the young guys, it does help with the up and coming of someone like Gunnar Henderson. With the home run derby, it's your ability to market yourself. That's what it used to be, where you're the superstar of the league and you're putting yourself out there. The whole country and the whole world is watching. You get your chance to be a household name. So I like that you're getting that from a young superstar. It's not just like a random young kid coming out there. That's one thing that I think that the NBA struggles with, is that you get people that really nobody's ever heard of play in the slam dunk contest. you're getting, everybody knows who Gunnar Henderson is, and as far as in the baseball circle. And now you put him on the national stage in the home run derby, he becomes even more of a household name. So I like that you're getting the young superstar. Getting a few more young superstars might be a good thing. And then you get a little bit more of the veterans. And I know, as you said, no Judge, no Ohtani. I don't think we're going to see Alonso this year as well. I'm speculating on that just because it's been so many times that he's done it. But if you get a little bit of a balance of the veteran presence with the young superstars, you have a show that you're going to have put on. So I think that's, as you said, a good start with Henderson jumping on board. I think that's a great a great opportunity for him as well. You know, be able to market himself, but also at the same time for Major League Baseball to market the young kid, which we know Major League Baseball does not market their players really at all. And I'm not even going to say good; they just don't do it at all. So this is a chance that they can really, turn that corner and do a good job on. In regards to the rules, in a way, I like, as I said to you guys before, they tweak it every few years or so. They do something different every few years to kind of keep it fresh. So I think this is them being able to do that as well. It's still timed, but they're trying to at least limit the exhaustion of the players during the derby that are going into the finals. They're just because again, you put a clock. We kind of learn a little bit. You put a clock on and you make people rush. Well, guess what? Their energy level is going to absolutely dip. So 40 pitches is what they get maximum. I think that's good. I think that's honestly a round. Not a typical round of batting practice. But for but you get a chance, or you get these guys to really max effort in 40. I think that's not a bad number to build it. And then you kind of go back to the old way of, all right, you get 3 outs in the bonus round, and you get as many bonus home runs as you can, and if you get 3 outs, you're done. I like the change up. I like it a little bit. I think like I said, it keeps it fresh. It keeps it, everybody's kind of guessing of who's going to get the hot streak going, especially in the bonus round. Who's going to be hottest the most in that bonus round to keep it going before the 3 outs. So I like the change. I like that it's a little bit different. And Major League Baseball continues to evolve the home run derby a little bit more here and there to keep fans interested, and that's the key about it.
JG, it is July 1st, and Elly De La Cruz has 40 stolen bases. Obviously, he is one of the younger faces in this league. But my question to you this morning is this: is he going to be a Red forever, or is Cincinnati going to be the holding ground until he gets out there and gets on a team that is going to have more playoff success, more national brand appeal? Because what he is doing, if you look at the start of his career in Cincinnati, I don't think he's being talked about enough outside of, like you said, natural baseball circles. You mentioned his name to a baseball fan, they're going to tell you all day about some of the stuff he's doing. Now, obviously, up and down a little bit as a hitter. He needs to get a little more consistent there. But you mentioned his name to a casual, and they're like, who are we talking about here? The Reds. Got it. I don't really watch the Reds. Is he going to be an example of someone that's, you think, stays a cornerstone of that Reds organization? Or is he just going to be another example of someone, well, he started with the Reds, and now we're talking about where he found success in his career on another team later on?
No, I actually can see him being a Red for majority of his career. He is a very humble young man. People that I've talked with who are close with the Cincinnati Reds, he's a superstar. We know that. He doesn't act like one. He's not a big spotlight guy. So, and there's been a comparison as far as just his personality to Joey Votto. And I think that's where, if you're a Reds fan, you're very happy about, because that is what you want. And a superstar in Cincinnati for the Reds is someone who is humble, quiet, keeps to himself, this type of thing. But at the same time, it doesn't really need that spotlight. So and he's happy from what I've heard. He's very happy about being in Cincinnati. So obviously later down the road, money is going to talk, but I could see him being in Cincinnati for the majority part of his career, just because, again, how he's enjoyed being in Cincinnati, how his personality fits the city. It really reminds a lot of fans of Votto, who spent his career in with the Reds. So I could definitely see De La Cruz staying throughout his career in Cincinnati.
Again, these anonymous Major League Baseball executives, the name that they all seem to think is definitely going to be moved before the trade deadline is Jazz Chisholm from the Miami Marlins. It makes sense. Miami's a dumpster fire. Of course, they're going to move any talented piece they potentially have. But JG, what is the market for a Jazz Chisholm? Because it wasn't that long ago that these same anonymous people voted on a little survey Major League Baseball did, and Jazz Chisholm was named the most overrated player in all of Major League Baseball. So coming off the heels of that, and now they're saying, yeah, he's probably on his way out of Miami. What is the market for the most overrated player in Major League Baseball?
Well, remember, the survey was players. The players were asked about that as far as who was the most overrated player in baseball, and not the executives. So, Jazz, he 260 hitter, 10 home runs, he's got a 1 WAR. So, I mean, there's some production there. Again, is it partly the environment that he's in Miami? Possibly, but he can provide something that versatility, being a middle infielder and an outfielder. He can provide being a leadoff hitter. So there's something there. Is he going to provide a big package to Miami in return? No. So, I mean, 2 prospects, I think is what you're going to look at here. Maybe, a top 15, maybe with a mid-level prospect that's thrown in as well. A little bit of money thrown in possibly. But it's not you're not talking about a top-tier player in Jazz Chisholm. So I don't think there's going to be a big return going to Miami. That's something that they have to consider. Why they haven't traded him over the years past is because they know the value's not to the level that they were hoping he could provide. So, it's inevitable, I think. I think he, and along with Jesus Luzardo, are going to be traded. But the same thing with Luzardo, the numbers are kind of there. So there's a leverage is not the strongest in favor of the Marlins. But again, you can get something. It's just a matter of how happy you're going to be when you get that something. Like I said, for Chisholm, at least, you're looking at probably 2 prospects in a trade and a little bit of money thrown your way just to make them happy. I think that'll be enough to really get Chisholm away from Miami.
We keep hearing these different rumblings out of Toronto. Jon Heyman recently talked about how the most recent contract negotiations with the Blue Jays and Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. weren't really even close numbers-wise. Now, granted, they don't have to really worry about that until 2026. But then you have Bo Bichette in an interview this past week saying he wouldn't be surprised at all if he gets traded. Heyman is placing the odds of Guerrero getting traded, slightly under the odds of Bichette getting traded. And then you have Vlad Guerrero Jr. kind of come out in the media this weekend and kind of walk back his Yankee statement from 3 years ago where he was like, I would never play for that organization. And he had a laundry list of reasons why. And which, again, everything happens for a reason. I'm not saying the Yankees are interested in Vlad Guerrero Jr., but you look at Vlad kind of making himself more marketable out there with the trade deadline coming up. JJ, you've said in the past that you don't think Vlad's going to be moved. When you're looking at Toronto, they are last in the AL East. Some people had them winning this division this year, or at least being in contention to win the division. That's clearly not where they are right now. What do you think is going to happen with these 2 players going into the trade deadline?
Well, let me play this hypothetical here, because let's just say that if Guerrero does get traded to the Yankees, you being a Yankee fan, Chris, Yankee fans don't forget comments in media. They don't. And so that would be a little interesting if the hypothetical does play out that he does go to New York, how he gets, how the reception is of Vlad Guerrero Jr. after making those comments a few years ago. No, I do still think Guerrero Jr. is going to stay in Toronto, unless there's someone who just blows the doors off of Toronto to make an offer for him. You still need a cornerstone piece, and that right now it's Guerrero and Bichette, and that's why I say Bichette brings you more value, being a shortstop, which we are seeing teams value the shortstop position more so today than they did really 10, 12 years ago. For some reason, that position was being devalued, kind of like the point guard position in the NBA. For a little bit, the point guard position was not really that valued. The same thing with recently the center position. But I'll use comparison to the point guard. The point guard position at one point was more of, if you're an old school point guard, you're not valued as much. If you're a shooting point guard, you're valued. Well, the shortstop position that we saw in the 90s was a position that you can hit. Well, that position didn't make it. Didn't last long in the 2010s. So the position got devalued. Now we're seeing it valued again with Bo Bichette, with Bobby Witt Jr., with Francisco Lindor. You're seeing the position being valued higher again. Carlos Correa was another one who, again, he hasn't really performed very well, but he got a big contract because of how he performed in years past. So that's where I think that if you are the Blue Jays and the offer that you're going to get for Bichette is a lot higher than what you're going to probably get for Guerrero Jr., that's where I think that it's likely that Bichette's going to be traded, because there are teams that are looking for shortstops more so than there's teams looking for first baseman. I think if you can get a bidding war with maybe the Yankees. I think you can get something with the Rangers. Again, the Rangers are still one of the teams I think they're looking for a first baseman, whether it's Pete Alonso or Guerrero Jr. I think more so Alonso they're interested in, because the money side is going to be a little bit more in their favor. But there's not many other teams that are sitting there saying, man, we got to have a first baseman. There's quite a few teams that are sitting there saying, man, if we had a shortstop to add to our roster, to our lineup, we're going to be in a really good position. So that's where I say Bichette is more valued as a trade piece than Guerrero. I think that there's going to be some more teams interested in Bichette for what he brings defensively, as well as what he brings in the lineup too. So that's where I kind of still stand with it. I think Bichette is more likely to be traded than Guerrero. I think Guerrero is still going to stay in Toronto. They're going to try to keep him in as a cornerstone piece if everything can kind of progress through with the contract talks that they're trying to get for in the future. But for the moment, right now, at least, I think only one of them is going to get traded. I'll be very shocked. I won't say very, but I will be shocked if both get traded at the deadline this year.
JG, before we get you out of here, you just mentioned Pete Alonso. The Mets are all over the board with what they're going to do with him. Now we are getting reports that they are not going to trade him before the trade deadline. What do you think is going to happen to Alonso? Obviously, them getting back into the wild card race with a good last 2.5 weeks is opening the door for him not to be moved. This organization can't seem to figure out who they are, what they want to be from literally week to week. And we are seeing that this season, because a month ago, it was almost a foregone conclusion. He's being moved before the deadline. Here we are a month later, and they're like, now he probably isn't going to be moved. Is Alonso going to be a Met after the trade deadline?
With how they're playing right now, I can see that being the case. That we can see Steve Cohen thinking that, hey, we got a chance. We're going to be buyers. Just a year after really selling off and saying, hey, we'll rebuild in for a couple of years. I've said this with you guys before. There's no plan in New York. They're in I won't say in Queens. There's no plan there. Like, you had a good roster last year. You were impatient, and that's the wrong side of the business, as in baseball. Is there sometimes you have to be more patient before you make an impulse decision. This is not, Steve Cohen needs to learn that. This is not full business where he's running his companies. You make an impulse decision, you can still be good. You can't make impulse decisions here. Now, was it a good idea at least to trade the 2 40-year-old pitchers he had and really free up? You know what? Yeah, I think that was a good decision at that point. But making the comments that we are rebuilding for 3 years, when you had a good roster still, I think that was an impulse decision made, or impulse statement being made that, not really understanding there's still some talent on this team. You add the right pieces and pitching that you needed, you could be a team that can compete a little bit. And we're seeing that from the Mets right now, that they're competing much better right now, and they're putting themselves in a position to be a wild card team. And they're a little bit dangerous. So I can see Alonso staying in New York, but I can also see them making an impulse decision and still looking to trade him, because there's no plan right now in Queens to have an understanding of what they're trying to achieve and what they're trying to do. So you almost have to, at this point, I'd say it's 50-50. 50-50 he stays, 50-50 he gets traded, because I just don't buy to what the front office and the ownership are doing right now.
JG, always a pleasure having you on here, sir. We'll see you tomorrow morning, all right?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
always a pleasure having JG on with us
No doubt.
here during the week. Let's jump to some NBA stuff. We got NBA galore to talk about this morning, and we're going to start with Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's time as a Golden State Warrior has come to an end. There are 4 teams who are potentially interested in Klay Thompson. The Warriors appear to be in help Klay mode right now. Warriors insiders saying that they will do whatever they can to facilitate a sign and trade if needed to either the Lakers, the Clippers, or the Mavs. The 76ers also appear to be in this conversation. Mo, what do you think is the best fit for Klay of those 4 teams next season?
Well, I think he would fit with any of those teams, but the team, if Klay's looking to compete for a title, if I'm being honest, the Sixers are probably the best fit. I don't know if they have the assets to trade for him, but they would be the best fit. I think a lot of people are looking at the Mavericks and thinking because they went to the finals, they're the beast in the West, and they're not. I think they had a great run. I think if you ran back the same teams in the playoffs this year, it would play out very differently. He might end up in Dallas, but I think the best fit for him, honestly, would be the Sixers. And I know you probably saw the reports. LeBron called him as soon as free agency kicked in. I don't think he'd be a great fit with the Lakers as well. I don't doubt that because you're going to still be able to play off of AD and LeBron, so you're going to get a lot of catch and shoot opportunities. As a Laker fan, I'd absolutely love to have Klay Thompson because what do the Lakers lack? It's shooting. So he would answer the bell for that immediately. And look, I'm sure if you're Klay Thompson, Chris, there's going to be a part of you that would I like to stick it to the Warriors? Yeah, I mean, of course. I'm a big part of everything good that's happened to this organization over the last decade, and I don't feel like I was valued. I don't. So I understand it. And if you're Golden State, the interesting thing about that is they're saying they're willing to facilitate a sign and trade like they're doing him a solid. They're doing themselves a solid because they don't want him to just walk for nothing. They realize like we need to get something back in return, some kind of value, because every plan Golden State has had so far this offseason has been blown up. They were going to get Paul George or at least pursue him if he opted into his contract, and he promptly opted out. I don't know where Golden State goes. It looks like of the teams that were pursuing free agents, they're going to be the biggest loser. They are. I'm trying to see where the future is for them, but right now, looking at their roster top to bottom, they're not going to make a major acquisition. It happens, right? These teams, dynasties run their course. I think Golden State has ran their course. I think Klay Thompson, I hope he ends up a Laker, but right fit, it would be with the Sixers.
And if you're the Warriors, Mo, who are you trying to get him to? Because like you said, you want to get whatever you can back for him. You don't want to let him walk for nothing. So if you're looking at those 4 teams and you're looking at a potential sign and trade and you're trying to get something back on the backhand side, which of those 4 teams potentially is going to give the Warriors the best value for letting Klay go to them?
So I think the Lakers, obviously D'Angelo Russell opted into his deal. They could trade Russell. And look, whatever you think of his playoff woes, D'Lo's been great in the regular season. He's a bucket getter, 18 points a game, shoots over 40% from 3, about 46% from the field. And he's been to Golden State before, so he's familiar with that system. If you're Dallas, I don't know what Dallas has to offer. Maybe picks, because there's not a player on their roster that's going to help the Warriors in the immediate. I don't think the Sixers have a lot to offer as well, other than picks. So if you're Golden State, if you're making a move for the future, then you might want to make a deal with the Sixers or the Mavericks. If you're trying to stay relevant or at least competitive, then you're probably going to make a deal with the Lakers.
Mo, JB Bickerstaff just signed a deal to become the new head coach of the Detroit Pistons. It's a 5-year contract. We know how those 5-year contracts sometimes play out when you're the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. Do you think it's a good signing? Do you think that he is going to see through his 5-year contract with the Detroit Pistons.
I think he's a solid coach. The real question will be, is he going to be able to develop this young team? Is he going to give them an identity on both sides of the floor? And when you look at their roster construction, can they put a consistent 8-man rotation on the court night in and night out? So those are question marks. If you're asking me realistically, do I think JB Bickerstaff is going to be the coach of the Pistons for 5 years? I do not. And I wish Coach Bickerstaff all the luck in the world, but I'm looking at Detroit, and that is a tough place to win. It is, Chris, because they have a really good player, and they have some pieces that are potentially going to be good players, but that takes time. And if they're going to truly commit and give him a 5-year deal, then he's going to be the coach. But you know how this goes. Have a bad losing season. Have another bad losing season. You might get 2 of those. The third losing season, he won't be the head coach. It's just tough. They're trying to do it the old-fashioned way by developing players through the draft. That works, Chris. That works when you can draft a player like Wemby, right? A legitimate transcended franchise player. I think Cade Cunningham is a terrific player. I don't know if he's a franchise player. So that is their struggle. They don't have a player to wrap around and create an identity off of. But good luck to Coach Bickerstaff.
Well, we just talked about the Warriors a little bit. We found out over the weekend that the Warriors had a deal in place to move Wiggins and Chris Paul, and in return pick up Zach LaVine. And the Warriors said, no, thank you. And then they waived Chris Paul shortly thereafter, which is humorous on the surface because you get offered a deal to move a guy out that you clearly don't want because you waived him. So essentially it would have been a Wiggins for LaVine deal if Chris Paul was just an added-on piece that the Warriors didn't want anyways. Are you surprised they turned that deal down? Would you have turned that deal down if you were the Warriors?
To get Zach LaVine? Yeah, I'm turning it down. I wouldn't want him.
Poor Zach LaVine.
Well, I mean, he's made millions in the league. I mean, he's not had a bad life. He's just overrated. He's an underachiever. He's one of those guys, Chris. How do I describe it? If you've ever played any kind of sport and you've been around a guy who it seemed like everything came naturally to him, like you could tell that he was more skilled than you or better than you, but you could beat him because you just outworked him. Do you know what I mean? Like I've played with guys like that stepped onto the floor and everybody was kind of like, oh, look what he can do. But when you played against him and it got competitive and it got real, he wasn't that impressive because he didn't have that it in him. He didn't have any dog in him. Zach LaVine has zero dog in him. As talented as he is, he's got a lot of quit in him. And I just wouldn't want him on my team.
LeBron James is giving indications, Mo, that he would prefer year-to-year deals as opposed to signing a 2 or 3 year deal. Any surprise on your end by that?
Nope. LeBron likes having power. So, I get it. Let me put some pressure on Rob literally every offseason. No, I don't have no problem with that. I'm not shocked by that. He is who he is. And look, he's earned the right to be able to do that, by the way. The man's been in the league for over 20 years. He, for whatever people want to say, he has brought a title to LA already. So for anybody that wants to give LeBron hate or Laker hate, the mission when he got to LA was to bring a title there. He's already done that. If he brings another one, that would be amazing, but he's already done what he set out to do. So I joke about it, but I have no problem with him being that way. I'd be that way too, because I look at some of the moves that Rob makes and I don't understand what he's doing. Like, I don't know who is advising him. I know you hear the rumors about Linda and Kurt Rambis. They need to keep them Rambises out of their room, out of the strategy room, because they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
We talked about it a little bit earlier. Paul George signs with the Philadelphia 76ers, 4 years, $212 million. Mo, what do you make of the move, and where does that put Philly into the stratosphere when it comes to the Eastern Conference? Are they better than Boston today?
No, they're not better than Boston. What it gives him is it gives him a versatility because now you have two guys who can play off Embiid on the perimeter when you've got Paul George and obviously Tyrese Maxey, who continues to get better. I think the good thing is also Paul George gives you another shot creator. That's offensively. Defensively, he gives you another long, rangy deep defender that can guard a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown to go with a Kelly Oubre or someone of that nature. So look, and don't forget an underestimated signing. The Sixers picked up Andre Drummond, who I think is the best backup center in basketball. So he can take some minutes off Joel Embiid, and that's always a good thing. I think on paper, because we have to judge it on paper and where we're at today, I think they're one of the three best teams in the East. But Boston is still number one. I would have you could flip a coin between Philly and New York because they play different styles, and then I would have Milwaukee behind them. I don't know what the rest of their roster is going to look like, Chris, because all their money is tied up for the most part in three players. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of roster they have opening day. And remember, the Paul George deal, if they win one title, it's money well spent, right? Because you have to know on the back end of that deal, he's 34. On the back end of that deal, don't be expecting a lot.
You mentioned they signed Drummond. They also get Maxey 5 years, $204 million. So they have their own version of a big three over there happening in Philly right now. And if you're the Suns are just like, it's not going to work. Those don't work anymore, fellas. That's what Phoenix is saying right now. Mo, let's go through some of the other moves that happened since free agency began. We're just going to grade them A through F as to how we think those moves are going to impact their teams. Let's start with Jalen Smith to the Chicago Bulls. He goes from Indiana to the Bulls, 3 years, $27 million.
I don't even know how to grade that. B, I guess. I don't know. He's not a bad player, but they're a bad team, so I don't know what it matters.
The Oklahoma City Thunder and Aaron Wiggins, Aaron Wiggins and the Oklahoma City Thunder agreed to a 5-year, $47 million contract.
Underrated player for them. He's big for them on both ends of the floor, so it's a great signing.
The Thunder also inked Isaiah Joe to a 4-year, $48 million contract.
One of the best three-point shooters in the league. Yeah, like I said, they're just bringing back guys that they had to keep. Smart.
Not only did Philly bring in Drummond, they also re-signed one of their own, keeping Kelly Oubre Jr. 2 years, $16.3 million.
That's a great signing, especially for the value, because he's better than that signing. He's a two-way wing, can get you buckets, and he can guard at a high level. So again, a great re-signing for the Sixers.
Derek Jones has taken his talents from Dallas to the Clippers. 3 years, $30 million.
I find that intriguing, not because Derek Jones is not a tremendous defender and an athlete, but I'm just trying to picture what he would look like on that Clippers team, because he's had the benefit of playing off of Luka and Kyrie. I don't know if he's going to get the same opportunity, so it's an interesting pickup.
Najee Marshall is taking his talents to the reigning Western Conference champions. 3 years, $27 million deal with the Mavericks.
Yeah, I think the Mavericks are loading up. They're trying to add more to their bench depth, and that's a great signing for them.
If you're a Suns fan, don't worry. We got you guys. Mason Plumlee. Mason Plumlee is coming your way. 1 year, 3.3.
So I know we're kind of joking, but look, in terms of what he does with his skill set, immediately they become a better passing team because he's not just one of the best passing bigs in the league. He's also got a super high IQ. I would say next to Drummond, he's probably the second best backup center in basketball. He's always been a really good, reliable backup center. And if there's anything they need in Phoenix, they need some kind of form of leadership. He is a leader.
We just mentioned Chris Paul a little bit ago. He has a new home. It is with the San Antonio Spurs. 1 year, $11 million.
I think it's a great signing from this standpoint. True professional. He actually had a really good season coming off the bench for Golden State last year. I think that Wemby being around a guy like Chris Paul, along with some of those other young players, it will benefit them it will benefit them to no degree. It's an awesome signing. I think Pop feels like I basically just got another coach on the floor. Now for Chris Paul, I think it's one of those moves where he said, you know what, I still want to play, I still want to be impactful, but it just shows you he's not chasing the ring anymore, and there's nothing wrong with that. So props to Chris Paul for just saying, I want to play, I want to have an impact on the Spurs, and I think he'll have a great impact.
We've been talking a lot about Philadelphia. They also pick up Eric Gordon. Terms for that contract are not released yet, but you see what Philly is doing. You get a big three, then you just got to piece together the rest of it around them, and that appears to be what they are doing, adding Aaron Gordon to the mix as well.
Smart veteran player, great catch and shoot 3-point shooter. I think he just gives them more depth coming off the bench. So again, it's a smart signing, but it's also one of those signings that says we're all in on right now.
Well, we talked about the idea of KCP leaving Denver. I believe he was slated to make something like $15 million or something if he stayed. Right. He got his money. 3 years, $66 million. So you're looking at a nice little raise for him, about $7 million a year. But he's going to the Orlando Magic. So you're going to a team that is going to be, is going to be in the conversation for Western Conference Finals, being the Denver Nuggets this upcoming season, to a team in Orlando who, best case scenario, it's a nice squad. They got a nice little team out there in Orlando. You're not necessarily talking Eastern Conference Finals. What did you make of the move, and how is he going to impact Orlando?
Look, a proven veteran, 2-time champion, a great catch and shoot player. He's also a really good, versatile defender. He knows how to win. I think he'll have a positive impact on Orlando, but this is what I want to say. He went there because he got the money. Let's be real. He got the money. They gave him the money he wanted, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you look at Orlando, when you look at their guards, they've already got 3 guards on their roster who have identical skill sets to what he brings. I don't understand the signing because, I'm just saying, like, you have a lot of guys that do similar things. So will he make them better overall? Sure. Does this move launch them into their title contenders now? Absolutely not. So I don't think it's a bad move, but I don't think it's a move that impacts the Eastern Conference in any way.
Well, the fact that Kevin Love got himself a 2-year deal, I love that for Kevin Love. I love that Kevin Love is still finding a way to play basketball in this league. He gets a 2-year deal to stay with the Miami Heat. Obviously, he's a bench player. Obviously, he's providing them with a little bit of range coming off of the bench. I'm just glad that he still plays basketball.
It's interesting because I look at Kevin Love and you're like watching a star player, an aging player, but he's aging like fine wine. He's still productive for them. And I'm sure he could go other places and get more money. I think he's one of those guys that's like, I'm content where I'm at. I'm not going to be one of those guys that move around to 5, 6, 7. I think he's content in Miami, and it's a great signing for them. Everybody knows Kevin Love is a great locker room guy, a true pro. So, yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that Pat Riley's big on, and it's about loyalty. So I'm glad it's a good signing for the Heat.
Mo, I know this is going to come as a shock to you because it was a little bit of a shock to me when I read it this morning. The beard. James Harden signs a 2-year deal, $70 million. No drama. No big headlines. No ruckus. Nope. He just signs the deal and moves on. It's incredible how we're just maturing so much later on in life for James Harden.
It's funny you said that because when I saw the signing, I thought, look at the more mature James. He's just like, you know what? I'm content here. They've offered me a fair deal. I'm just going to sign it. We're good. I mean, good for them. I think bringing Harden back is big. I think getting Derrick Jones Jr. will have benefits. The key for me with the Clippers, you have to watch where DeMar DeRozan lands. Because if they can get DeMar DeRozan, it almost stifles losing Paul George. If you think about it, DeMar DeRozan and Derrick Jones Jr., they're Paul George. You know what I'm saying? So that's a big move for the Clippers if they can find a way to land DeMar DeRozan. That means they stay in contention.
We talked about the Hawks and what they were going to do with their 2-star players. Were they going to stay? Were they going to try to form something with the number 1 draft pick who they just picked up? Well, now we know at least part of the equation because they moved one of the two, that being DeJounte Murray. He is traded to the Pelicans to join Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum. It's a deal where the Pelicans agreed to send the Lakers a 2025 first-round pick, a 2027 first-round pick, Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, and E.J. Little to the Atlanta Hawks for a one-time All-Star in Murray. Let's talk about the Pelicans side of it first. What is this going to do for the Pelicans?
Well, offensively, it takes CJ off the ball all the time. And I think CJ can play point, but he's much better coming off the ball. Murray's going to give them another shot creator. He can also give you 18 to 20 points a night himself. I think their depth just got a little bit better. And don't forget, on the other side of the ball, it gives you somebody that can be an on-the-ball defender. I think DeJounte Murray can get back to his roots, especially with a coach like Willie Green, who wants to focus more on defense. It's a great pickup for the Pelicans. My only question is the impact on the Murray pickup. It all depends on, to me, what they're going to do with Brandon Ingram.
And what does that look like now if you're a Hawks fan? Because in a perfect world, you're a Hawks fan, you're like, we got to keep the band together. We just got the rookie in there. We got to somehow make all these ingredients work. And then you barely get over the hype of signing the rookie in that first round. They're picking or drafting the rookie in the first round, and Murray's already on his way out. What do the Hawks look like next season? Still not knowing if Trae Young is going to be there. You still don't know if he's going to stay in Atlanta, Mo. So it could – I hope you like the Frenchman because he might be the centerpiece of your team building forward if they also move off of Trae Young.
I agree. Look, I don't think they're going to move off of Trae Young, but it's not impossible. But when I'm looking at Atlanta and what they did, I think this is the thing that we talked about a lot last year. The fear of that second apron when it comes to the cap and the penalties that come with that, it is driving what a lot of teams are doing moves wise. And I think Atlanta wanted to get off having two max players. They don't want three, but they didn't even want to have two. So I think that was a big part in it, getting off of Murray's contract. And I don't think they're done. I don't think they're done moving bodies and contracts. I think Clinton Capella, somebody they're trying to move. They're trying to cut cap. But when you look at them in terms of being competitive going forward next year, I look at a team that's probably going to be fighting for an 8th seed at best, maybe the 8th, 10th seed. They're a playing team right now on paper.
And then you have the Mavericks and the Pistons, who basically just swapped Tim Hardaway Jr. and Quentin Grimes. I don't know. I don't see much there other than just saying you swap some bodies around.
Although I will say this, I think Quentin Grimes is one of those guys that just got put in a jam. I think Quentin Grimes is a much better player than Tim Hardaway Jr. He can guard at a high level, something Tim Hardaway can't do. And I think if given an opportunity, he's actually an effective 3-point shooter. So I would not be surprised if Quentin Grimes breaks into the Mavs regular rotation. I think Jason Kidd will like his skill set and what he gives you on both sides of the ball. Let me add one more thing too. We didn't really get into it. Denver, when they won their title, immediately the first thing that happened to them is other teams came, they made money offers, and they lost their bench. Their bench became depleted, but they still had that starting five. They went into last year's playoffs with a great starting five, but no bench, and it cost them. It ended up costing them. This offseason now, they've lost KCP, and I thought there were certain things they had to do, and you couldn't lose him was one of them. Now, when you look at Denver, it's interesting because before I was like, well, Denver will be back. They're going to add to their bench, and they'll be right back in the mix as a title contender. But now they've lost KCP. They haven't really improved their bench. I think Denver's in trouble. They don't have the money. Maybe they've invested too much money when you look at what they're paying Joker, and you've got to pay Joker, and you've got to pay Murray. I think at some point they're going to have to make a hard choice, Chris, Aaron Gordon or Porter Jr. I think that because they're a lesser team right now, and they didn't do anything to stop the bleeding. No Band-Aids, no anything. I think they're in trouble. They should be after Klay Thompson. They should be pursuing Klay Thompson. They should have been pursuing Chris Paul. And I'm just looking at them. I'm waiting for them to make an impactful move, because right now they're in trouble. If you look at them top to bottom, they're in trouble.
And last but not least, when it comes to the NBA, as for right now, the Clippers are looking to move Russell Westbrook. What does that even look like?
It's funny you say that. I don't know what the return would be. I think Denver should be interested in Russell Westbrook. As a bench player, as a 6th or 7th man for the Clippers, Russ played well. Russ was effective. Denver is in desperate need of guys that can be impactful within a rotation. I think Russ would be a good fit for them coming off the bench. And for the Clippers, they're probably looking for maybe a couple of picks in return. I don't think they're looking for bodies. They're looking for picks. So that's a potential trade partner. I would be surprised if the Denver Nuggets are not aggressive in pursuing Russell Westbrook.
Mo, let's close with this. I don't know how often you peruse Fox News. But last week, Tony Khan was on Fox News talking about AEW. And the only reason I stopped scrolling the channels was the ticker on the bottom, which said AEW 500 million plus fans in 110 plus live shows in 2024. And I had to stop because I was like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't math in my head, Mo. So I pulled out the calculator because I didn't trust my own head math. And that comes out to about, I was generous. He said 110 plus. I gave him 120 because if it's 110 plus, it's probably like, 113, 117, something in there. So right. I went 120 just to make it a nice round number. And if he said 500 million plus, it's actually probably just over 500 million. Mo, he's talking like 42,000 fans per live event in 2024. If AEW had 40,000 plus fans at all of their live events this year, Mo, they would actually be competition to WWE. But instead, Mo, what we're seeing constantly with AEW is empty arena shots, which, by the way, 40,000 fans, the average arena doesn't hold 40,000 fans.
Correct.
I mean, if you guys remember the old WWE, WWF days, we'd be like, oh, we're at the sold-out All-State Arena, 19,000 large. That's what those arenas hold. 17, 21, some of the newer, bigger ones hold like 23, 24,000 fans. Mo, when you start getting into the 40 numbers, you're talking about stadiums.
Right.
You're not talking indoor arenas. Right. If you're talking 40,000 plus fans, and I know they sold out Wembley over in the UK and they claimed they had like 80,000 or something there. Fine. That's two of their, you know what I mean? That's two of their big live shows right there rolled into one. There's no way, Mo. I don't know what he is doing. Is he the worst businessman in all of sports? Because no logical wrestling fan looks at that and goes, well, that's true. Not one.
Well, in keeping with the times, he sounds kind of familiar.
Right. He was on the right network for it.
Yeah. He says a bunch of stuff. It's not true. They didn't call him out on any of it. So, yeah. These are the times that we live in, and I think Tony Khan recognizes that. I can say whatever I want to say. Nobody's checking me, so okay. All right.
So 500 million. I feel like we did 500 million, 500 plus million, 500 million plus.
Right now, you just throw it out there. Nobody goes. Well, Mr. Khan, we actually checked, and it's nobody does that. They go, that sounds about right. Nice. Mind you, now they've never been to a wrestling event. They're like,
yeah. That's a lot of people. This guy's got half a billion people. That's good. It's a nice number for Tony Khan.
Exactly.
Jesus, Mo, take us to a close on a Monday.
Hey, thank you guys for joining us on a Monday. We appreciate your support. Make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. JG will be back here to talk more Major League Baseball. Of course, we're going to have more NBA news as the signings continue to come in today. All of that and more. Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by